Welcome to the 700 Club. Israel has launched its largest military operation against Hezbollah since 2006. The IDF reports Operation Northern Arrows has taken out tens of thousands of rockets and drones in southern Lebanon.
Israel warned Lebanese civilians to evacuate areas held by the terror group. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also sent a message that the fight isn't with Lebanon, it's with Hezbollah. CBN's Chris Mitchell reports.
Israeli warplanes launched more than 1,600 strikes to destroy Hezbollah rocket launchers, drones, and UAVs inside southern Lebanon and the Bekaa Valley.
Essentially, we're targeting combat infrastructure that Hezbollah has been building for the past 20 years.
Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says they've taken out tens of thousands of weapons in Hezbollah's arsenal. Many of the weapons are in homes and buildings in civilian-populated areas. Multiple videos of the strikes showed secondary explosions igniting rockets, and the IDF released photos of Hezbollah rockets inside Lebanese homes. The strikes follow recent targeted attacks that decimated Hezbollah's top military leadership.
Over the course of 1 week, we can say that in many ways, Nasrallah remains alone at the top.
Nearly 500 died in Monday's wave, and some 2,000 were injured, many of them Hezbollah fighters. The IDF issued warnings to Lebanese civilians to get out of harm's way.
However, even as we called on civilians to move away from danger, we saw that Hezbollah operatives were doing the opposite and acted to prevent civilian moving safety.
Hezbollah fired hundreds of rockets as far south as Haifa, sending Israeli civilians to bomb shelters. While some rockets landed, most were intercepted by the Iron Dome. In Lebanon, thousands clogged the roads north in an exodus to escape the fighting. In a message to the Lebanese people, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel is not at war with Lebanon, but Hezbollah.
For too long, Hezbollah has been using you as human shields. It placed rockets in your living rooms and missiles in your garage. Those rockets and missiles are aimed directly at our cities, directly at our citizens. To defend our people against Hezbollah strikes, we must take out those weapons. Now, starting this morning, the IDF has warned you to get out of harm's way. I urge you, take this warning seriously. Don't let Hezbollah endanger your lives and the lives of your loved ones. Don't let Hezbollah endanger Lebanon.
The IDF says this is just a prelude to bigger goals, including eliminating Nasrallah. The question is if and when Israel may launch a ground invasion.
Well, CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem. So, Chris, what are the future plans? Are we looking at a ground invasion against Hezbollah?
You know, a lot of people say this kind of a bombing campaign, Gordon, is actually preparing for those just conditions, right, to go into southern Lebanon. And what they are doing right now is destroying what Hezbollah has built over 20 years, as the IDF chief of staff said that. But during those 20 years, what also the IDF has been doing is spending time identifying exactly what Hezbollah was doing and actually making a 3D graph of most of the villages and buildings there. Several years ago, Gordon, I asked Benny Gantz, he was the former IDF chief of staff, about Hezbollah, and he said they had magnificent intelligence on Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. I think right now we're seeing that intelligence in action and the possibility of a prelude to a ground invasion. But like I said, we don't know when or where, but it does seem like the IDF is preparing for that eventuality.
Well, how badly has Hezbollah been weakened by these attacks? You know, before this, people were talking that they had enough military strength to actually match one of the European nations. How badly have they been weakened?
Very much, Gordon. In fact, in just the last couple of hours, another Hezbollah leader has been eliminated inside Beirut. He's the head of Hezbollah's missile unit. And then in the last couple of weeks, we've seen Hezbollah suffer probably the worst attacks in its history. The bombing campaign right now has really eliminated maybe half of the 20-year arsenal, thousands and thousands of rockets, drones, UAVs, and then it keeps getting destroyed. Last Friday, we saw that the top leadership was eliminated, and
in one strike. Before that, then there were thousands of Hezbollah fighters that were disabled, wounded, or killed in that beeper attack. So the communication is limited within Hezbollah. The morale is low. And also, Gordon, there's a big distrust right now in the leadership of Hassan Nasrallah. He was the one personally responsible for this beeper catastrophe. And now it seems like before he can recover from one blow, Israel is hitting him again. And now Israel is promising even more surprises.
Well, a surprise to me was the president of Iran coming out and saying he doesn't want a war with Israel. So is he a lone voice? But is this how Iran is going to react?
I think Iran is going to react that way. Also, I had heard that some of the hardliners, to sort of more extreme than the president, criticized him for that. But right now, Iran is really not reacting much at all to what's happening to its main proxy army in the region. One Lebanese analyst I was in contact with said Hezbollah is looking for support and attention at Iran's doors, but it's hardly getting any attention. Hezbollah was supposed to be Iran's insurance in case Israel attacked Iran's nuclear facilities, but now they seem to be abandoning their main ally in the region.
Well, U.S. is now sending more troops to the region. Does Israel have the Biden administration's support in this attack against Hezbollah?
Well, at least so far right now, but what we're hearing, Gordon, is that the U.S. wants to present what they say are concrete ideas to ease the crisis, and also voicing opposition to the ground invasion we're talking about, and trying to figure out a way forward, what they're calling is an off-ramp to prevent further escalation. And that could mean that Hezbollah won't keep getting degraded and destroyed. But, Gordon, I get the sense here that Israel is really determined to finish the job, eliminate Hezbollah as a threat, and the main goal right now of this current operation is to make sure that these Israelis, tens and tens of thousands of them, can go home after the northern Israel's been subjected to maybe more than 9,000 rockets in the last 11 months.
Well, I hope Israel sticks to that plan. You look at these attacks, whether it's October 7th by Hamas or the rocket attacks from Hezbollah, both of which unprovoked and literally coming out of the blue. You look at that and say, well, how can a nation state exist if you have these continual battles along your borders and your civilian population isn't safe in their own homes? So, of course, Hamas has to be eliminated. Of course, Hezbollah has to be eliminated. In that, though, it looks like Israel is really suffering on the world stage. The narrative doesn't seem to be they're justified in these wars. The narrative seems to be, well, it's okay to fight all you want within your own borders, but when you attack across a border, we're going to get involved. So the UN General Assembly, it's meeting this week. Does Benjamin Netanyahu plan to go, and what would be his message to the world?
There had been talk that maybe he would cancel his trip because of what's going up on the northern border. But right now, I think he's going to go, but he'll have a shortened itinerary. He's going to go there, and he's going to defend Israel's right to defend itself. As you said, Gordon, what other nation would actually allow itself to have 9,000 rockets or more fired into its sovereign territory without defending itself? And some people say this is really where Netanyahu shines, on the world stage and presenting Israel's case to the world. He's done it every year that he's been prime minister. And he also comes at a time, Gordon, when the UN just passed a resolution, the General Assembly, that Jews don't belong in Judea and Samaria or in the old city that's right behind me.
Well, it's an interesting time. It's certainly an interesting time. And it's a challenge for Christians right now. That, yes, we have to stand up. So, Chris, I appreciate all the reports. I appreciate how strong you stand with Israel. You're a watchman on the wall. And thanks so much for joining with us.
Thank you, Gordon.
For everyone watching, please pray for Israel. These are incredible times. We're seeing military victories in Gaza, military victories so far with Hezbollah in the north. But on the world stage, it's a very trying time for Israel. And we're seeing protests right here in the United States. So let's pray and let's ask God to intervene and to change hearts. And again, let's stand with Israel. In other news, prosecutors say the man who staked out Donald Trump on his golf course left evidence of his plan to assassinate the former president. Wendy Griffith has that story and more from the CBN Newsroom. Wendy?
That's right, Gordon. Ryan Routh allegedly wrote a letter about his intentions months ago and dropped it off in a box at a friend's house. The box went unopened until after his arrest. The handwritten letter reads in part, "This was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump." It also offers $150,000 to anyone who can, quote, complete the job. Prosecutors say cell phone records show Routh staked out the Trump golf course for weeks and set up a sniper's nest just outside the fence. They intend to ask the grand jury for a charge of attempted assassination. Well, forecasters predict a potential hurricane will hit the Gulf Coast later this week. Hurricane watches have been issued for Cuba and Mexico as a group of storms appears to be strengthening. By Wednesday, those storms could become a hurricane, which could develop into a Category 3 storm and hit the Florida Gulf Coast sometime on Thursday. Well, Regent University announced a $50 million capital campaign to build major new athletic facilities. The new complex will pave the way for its NCAA Division III status. Chancellor Gordon Robertson unveiled the plans to students and alumni over the weekend. They include an athletic center plus NCAA basketball and volleyball courts, baseball and soccer fields, an outdoor track, and more.
All of these facilities are to build you and to build people and to build Christian leaders to change the world. For that wonderful, glorious goal, we need God.
Regent has also revealed its new mascot. There he is, Rex the Royal. The white horse symbolizes excellence, innovation, and integrity, the values of the athletic program. And Gordon, I just can't imagine how pleased Pat would be if he was here to see this as well.
Yeah, I think of him often as we undertook this program. A year ago when I became chancellor, the chairman of the board, Phil Walker, came to me and said, well, we have this capital campaign for a new athletic facility. And I said, well, that's great. You know, how much do you need? And he said, $50 million. And I said, okay. How much have you raised so far? Well, no, nothing. And it was, okay, this is now my job. It's wonderful how God just comes in and gives you blueprints and tells you the way to go. I'm pleased to say we're almost there to the goal. We've got 7 million more to go, and we need to raise that between now and June. And in June, we'll break ground. We're going to be clearing the land in the next month, but we'll break ground. We're going to go ahead and say, okay, let's get the architects involved with the bid-ready plans. Let's get contractors involved, and let's make this happen. But part of that message to the student body was a message that God gave me years ago when I was in Manila and thinking about building a building for CBN Asia. And he spoke to me clearly, I want you to build people. And that became my drive, that who was going to take over for me, what was the staff going to be. And I'm pleased to say here we are, 30 years later, celebrating the anniversary of CBN Asia, and it's absolutely dynamic. And what my goal is to build this Regent University for God's glory. That was the original plan given to my father. They need athletic facilities. You got to have athletic facilities to be a university these days. So, okay, God wants it for his glory. He's going to supply. He has supplied. We're breaking ground in June. It's going to be a marvelous thing. If you want more information about Regent University and how you can attend, or your children or grandchildren can attend, it's real simple. All you have to do is go to regent.edu, or you can call that special number. It's on the screen, 866-910-7615, and you can find out all the information you need for you to apply. If you want Christian leadership to change the world, Regent University is the place to go. For generations, Americans have relied on doctors and public health professionals to keep them healthy. In recent years, a number of medical mistakes have led to the erosion of public trust. Medical reporter Lori Johnson reports on these mistakes and explains what steps patients can take to protect their health.
We are dealing with an epidemic of mistrust.
Dr. Marty McCary says during COVID-19, public health leaders lost credibility, touting experimental policies like long-term school closures and banning visitors from dying hospital patients.
That was a human rights violation. Nobody should be prevented, regardless of the circumstance, from holding the hand of their dying loved one in the hospital. But the medical establishment has not apologized.
In his book, Blind Spots, McCary warns that public health officials made other mistakes over the years. For example, advising parents not to let their children eat peanuts.
It turns out that peanut avoidance in the first few years of life doesn't prevent peanut allergies, it causes them. And so ignited the modern day peanut allergy epidemic.
Another poor decision, according to McCary, is the misguided approach to pain pills.
The opioid epidemic was caused by the medical establishment putting out a dogma that opioids were not addictive.
And he's critical of longtime financial influence affecting how medical experts advise Americans on their diet.
The obesity and diabetes epidemic may have in part been caused by the dogma of the food pyramid that was financed by the food industry.
These types of errors, according to Dr. McCary, often stem from a wrong way of thinking that not just doctors, but all of us can fall into.
We tend to believe what we hear first, not because it's more logical than new information, but simply because we heard it first. And that sort of intellectual laziness means that our brains will subconsciously reject new information or reframe it to fit what we already believe.
McCary cites that as the reason why 80% of doctors today deny older women highly beneficial hormone replacement therapy.
There was a medical dogma propagated 22 years ago by the National Institutes of Health, where a doctor claimed it caused breast cancer when the data never supported it.
And why too many doctors continue to overprescribe antibiotics, even as new data show these drugs kill important gut bacteria.
They train the immune system. They even produce serotonin, which is involved in brain health and mood. And so this microbiome is central to health. It's been in a blind spot of modern medicine. We don't talk about it much.
Another blind spot, doctors believing they create a suicide risk by not helping young people change their gender.
The worst thing you can do in science is to tell a parent or a patient something with such absolutism, saying that it's scientifically supported when it's not. And it turns out that the increased suicide risk is driven not by the gender dysmorphia diagnosis that's assigned to the kid, but rather the underlying mental health disturbances.
McCary adds that health professionals and the public need to question and research certain long-held beliefs that could be based on wrong information.
We need to recognize that our brains have that human tendency and then temporarily and actively suspend our biases, because we all have biases, we have to acknowledge that, and suspend those biases as we consider new information objectively.
And while pointing out the need for change, McCary warns against overreaction.
We don't want to create hysteria in the general public about the medical profession. If you're in an emergent or urgent situation, do whatever the doctor tells you. But when it comes to chronic abdominal pain, or what's actually causing our epidemic of autism or autoimmune diseases, or the general inflammatory conditions that are now epidemic in society, we don't have a good answer for you.
McCary sees modern diet and lifestyle as the most likely culprits and points people back to a more spiritual approach.
It's almost as if we're now rediscovering that many of the biblical principles around health is where we need to get back to. It's not a matter of discovering things. It's a matter of reminding us of our great heritage of good health.
And that includes eating whole foods the way God created them instead of processed. Research also shows practices like prayer, fasting, And being part of a community can result in a number of physical benefits. So while public health guidance can be confusing and even wrong at times, evaluating recommendations with an open mind and through a spiritual lens can help. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Well, that's the latest in the health reports from Lori. I do encourage you, make sure that you're educated on the treatment plan. You know, there's a bit of warning to this that the doctor who's treating you has spent years at this, and so you doing a brief Google search and getting educated on the internet, you're not going to match him in terms of expertise, but you will get yourself to the point where you can ask the intelligent questions, and you can say, what about this, or what about that, what about these drug interactions? And particularly in a hospital setting, make sure you have someone with you at all times so that you can absolutely monitor and keep track of what's been given to you and why it's been given to you and what's the schedule. Let's be informed consumers of healthcare. In that, you'll have a much better outcome. Terry?
Recording artist Babbie Mason has won music industry awards and accolades and has performed for millions of people. Yet 10 years ago, she realized something was missing in her life.
Two-time Dove Award winner Babbie Mason is a Grammy-nominated recording artist and songwriter. She is also the television host of Babbie's House. As a follower of Christ, Babbie has shared her faith with passion and intention, both on and off the stage. She encourages all of us to shine God's light to those around us in her latest book, Each One, Reach One, inspired by her top-charting single by the same title.
Please welcome back to the 700 Club, Babbie Mason. We were trying to figure out how many years it's been since we did this together, and it's been way too long.
It's been a few minutes, but it's always good to be here.
It's great to have you back. I am so excited about the message in your book, Each One, Reach One. You know, about 10 years ago, you were feeling, even though you've been a believer for years and singing and preaching and sharing.
I'm a preacher's kid. I'm a pastor's daughter.
But then you had a moment.
Yes.
Where God spoke to you. What did he share?
Well, I reached 50 years of walking with Jesus. I accepted Christ as a very young child. My father was a pastor. I'm the preacher's daughter. I'm the church pianist since age... At 9
I
years
read
of
that.
age.
I was like, seriously?
They were desperate. I could play a few chords in the key of C, so I got hired.
You got the job.
I got the job. So I've been walking with Jesus for a long time. So a few years ago, I reached my 50th year, and I took some time to do some reflection, to thank God for my relationship with him over 5 decades. Wow. And during that season of reflection, the Lord just brought to my attention that I needed to shore up the area of sharing my faith. And I could easily share my faith from the stage. I knew my testimony like a script, but when it came time to share my faith one-on-one, sometimes I was hesitant, sometimes I was intimidated, sometimes I couldn't find the right words, so I often opted not to share my faith one-on-one with others. Sure. So when I reached that 50th year, I said, Lord, we've got to change that. And I prayed, and the result is this book, and it is to challenge believers to take the message of the gospel, the Great Commission, and what I call the Great Mandate from Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 through 16. Seriously, they're not suggestions, they're not just great ideas, they are commands from Jesus, and we're to walk them out, but with joy and with confidence, and this book is a way to help give us some tools to help us to do that.
You know, we've probably never needed to hear encouragement in that direction more in our world, current world, than today, because part of the reason we're where we are, I think, is because we've gotten so comfortable and we've gotten quiet about things. Sometimes it's uncomfortable to share your faith with people, many times, but once you prayed that prayer, God really moved in your life and in your heart and changed the way that you do that.
Yes.
So how?
Well, one of the ways that the Lord showed me, there are many ways that we can share our faith, but according to your personality, even the gifts and talents that you have in your hand, you can use those areas to help you share your faith. And one of the areas that the Lord began to show me is to use kindness as a witnessing tool. And we're living in a day and age where people are hurting. And you ask a person how they're doing, typically they may lead with their pain. And when they lead with their pain, with kindness, with generosity, with compassion, we can minister to their pain with the love of Jesus. And when people are usually hurting, they are very receptive to the love of Christ. I found as it's happening, the grocery store is that's my mission field.
I love that.
And everywhere I go, to the grocery store, the big box store, the department store, I meet somebody, I give them a compliment, and the next thing I know, I'm sharing Jesus with them.
Talk about the Piggly Wiggly story.
I'm in the checkout line. The music is playing. I think it's Neil Diamond, you know, and I'm just kind of humming along with Neil. And the guy in front of me turns around and he says, "That sounds pretty good. You should consider singing for a living." I said, "Well, I do sing for a living." Well, he says, "Sing something for me." So I just kind of eased up and sang a verse of Amazing Grace. Well, the gentleman who manages the store came out of his cubby hole there in the office, you know, and he came right down into the checkout lane. He closed his eyes. He lifted his hands. The next thing I know, I'm kind of gathering a crowd. Well, when I realized that I was attracting an audience, well, I turned it on like I was, you know, really on stage.
Verse 2.
Yes, and verse 3 and verse 4 as the crowd continued to get bigger. And that just kind of set this domino effect of being able to share Christ. The gentleman thanked me for the song. The clerk says, "Amazing Grace is my grandmother's favorite song." I sense that as kind of a little bit of a moment, maybe to be sensitive to her needs. I prayed with her right there at the checkout lane. And I said, "How's your grandmother?" She shared how her grandmother was doing. I said, "Can we pray for her right now?" She says, "Yes." I've done this on many occasions. No one has ever refused prayer.
You know, one of the keys I see in that, Babbie, is you become, when you ask the question, you need to become available. Like,
Yes.
a lot of times we'll say to each other, "Hi, how you doing?" And what we want to hear is just another, "I'm okay, how are you?" And we pass.
And we keep
You know,
walking.
yeah.
And on another occasion, in the same store, I'm headed towards the rotisserie chicken. A lady has gotten her chicken. She's walking past me. And I did that. I said, "Hello, how are you doing?" And I engaged with just a little eye contact, with concern to say, "I see you." You know, sometimes we're just in a hurry, we're blind. But I try to be more sensitive.
Yes.
And I said, "How are you doing today?" And she actually told me. And she said, I'm okay. I sense that I'm okay. Here again, it's just a little open door to maybe hear a little bit more of her story. And I said, "Just okay?"
Yeah.
And just 2 sentences in, and she began to tell me her story that she's going to have a heart catheterization in a couple of days. She's nervous. She's anxious. I asked her if she had a relationship with Jesus. She told me that she did. I said, "Well, how about we pray about it right now?" And we did. And she said, "I feel so much." And typically, Terry, when this happens, people are just waiting.
Yes.
They're open for an encounter with Jesus. They really are. And they're very responsive to compassion and care. And she began to cry like a lot of people do when I have these encounters. And just tears began because they are encountering the love of Jesus in a tangible way that speaks to their situation. I prayed with her, gave her a great big hug, and just a couple of minutes later, they don't take very long. These encounters, just a couple of minutes, she was on her way.
You know what? This isn't just for Babbie.
No, it's not.
to do. It's for all of us. And I think of how your message in your book, Each One Reach One, is the message for today. This is the mandate from Jesus for every one of us. This is a new book. It's everyday ways you can shine God's love. We need to begin to do this on a daily basis. It's a practical guide to sharing your faith, and it's available nationwide.
And welcome back to the 700 Club for this CBN News Break. The fallout from the Southern Baptist Convention's years-long sexual abuse scandal is proving costly for the denomination. The SBC Executive Committee says it's selling the organization's Nashville headquarters. Since revelations of clergy abuse came to light, the committee has spent more than $12 million investigating. Auditors say budget shortfalls were unsustainable. Leading the SBC Executive Committee to acquire a loan to cover shortfalls and sell their building. The committee also voted to create a new department dedicated to dealing with abuse reform. Well, a huge moment for Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin last night. Football fans remember he suffered cardiac arrest on the field during a Monday night football game back in 2023. The incident sparking prayers across the nation, including prayers on national television. Hamlin miraculously recovered and returned to the starting safety position this season. Well, last night in his first Monday night football game since the incident, he made his first NFL interception. After the game, he told reporters, quote, to be able to come all the way back from that and to have a special moment, it's all God right there. Congratulations to Damar. You can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.
Tammy is a top pastry chef who is a quarterfinalist on The Greatest Baker. And yet she says her success isn't because of her delicious cakes. It's because of her faithfulness through tithing.
Tammy BEDOLLA loved to bake, and she always dreamed of owning her own restaurant. Shortly after marrying her husband, Martin, she opened her own Mediterranean bistro in 2018.
It's something that came natural. God gives you a gift, and some people can tell a really good story. Some people can bake a really good cake, you know, and this was my gift. When you find out that something that's your gift, you want to expound on it.
For a couple of years, the restaurant was successful. Then COVID hit, and the business came to a standstill.
I worried about if I was going to lose my dream and lose my business. How am I going to pay the electric bill? How am I going to pay the lease? How am I going to pay the water?
I was more worried about her well-being because it was a lot of pressure.
The couple prayed for God to supply, and they continue to tithe, a principle they learned from watching the 700 Club.
I continued to give not only my 10%, but up and above that. I just believe that whenever you bless someone, you're going to be blessed in return. And that's not why I do it. I want to give because I want to please Him.
Tammy continued to look for ways to earn income through her business. Even though the restaurant doors were closed, she advertised on social media and sold goods from her car. Quickly, her food was in demand.
And it was a great blessing. I was able to pay every bill and not only make a profit, but to be able to make a margin of income extra and over and above.
When the lockdown lifted, Tammy, with Martin helping out, reopened the bistro. They were successful in no time.
I started selling birthday cakes, anniversary cakes, and I had no idea what God was about to do.
In August 2022, Tammy closed the bistro and launched a new business, Tammy's Cake Babies. 2 months later, she competed in The Greatest Baker, making it to the quarterfinals. Since then, her income has doubled. The BEDOLLAs point to God's principles.
He says to give. Give and it'll be given back into you. Shaken down, pressed together, and running over, and we can believe for it.
I'm giving because I feel in my heart that it's love. It's love that you're giving.
You can trust God with your finances. You can take that to the bank.
He encourages us to give, to be givers. Because, well, He gave Jesus, gave His life for us. So that's the most important thing. So, I mean, really, God owns everything. He just wants to see where our heart's at in giving.
Martin has it so right, and it's one of the great principles of the universe. For God so loved the world that He gave. And when you have that love, then you can't help but give. It's fundamental to being a Christian. If you want to be like Jesus, then you have to be a giver. And it shows your heart. For where your treasure is, there shall your heart be also. So when you love people and you want to help those in need, well, then wonderful things can happen. When you add to it this principle from Matthew 25, to those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. For Tammy, she said, this is my gift. Making cakes is my gift. I want to develop it. I want to use well what I have been given, and then I want to make sure, as God provides for me, I'm helping others along the way. I love to give. I want to be a part of God's plan for the world today. If you want to start a lifestyle of this, it's certainly not some get-rich-quick scheme. It requires hard work. It requires you to use well what you've been given. But when you receive from the Lord, you say, I want to remember you. I want to remember your love for me, and I want to imitate that to others and give. If you want to start doing that, give us a call, 1-800-700-7000. Say, yes, I want to join the 700 Club. How much is that? It's $20 a month. That's 65 cents a day. We have other club memberships, 700 Club Gold at $40 a month, 1,000 Club, $1,000 a year, and that's $84 a month. And when you give and when you call and pledge, I've got something for you. It's called Pray with Power, and it will transform your prayer life because it teaches you how to pray the Word of God. Follow this Pray with Power booklet for 40 days, and the power to access heaven will be released in your life.
SHAMEBER is a little girl growing up in the Philippines. She's an adorable child, and yet her mom rarely takes her out in public. And here's why.
Nori, who is a single parent in the Philippines, doesn't like taking her daughter out in public. 3-year-old SHAMEBER was born with club feet.
People said to me, "Oh my, you shouldn't have any more children." Or, "What good is a child like that when she can't even walk normally?"
Nori's dream is for SHAMEBER to receive an operation to correct the condition, but she earns only $5 a day. That, she said, makes her dream impossible to achieve.
I said, "Why are your feet turned out like this? Why did it have to happen to us when we're struggling so much?"
Then, thanks to you, Operation Blessing met SHAMEBER and her mom, and we paid for her to receive the Ponseti treatment method, using casting and a minor surgery to realign her feet. After treatment and some PT, SHAMEBER's feet are back in the correct position, and she's able to walk and jump and play like other kids.
I want to shout because my little girl is finally well. I am so happy for the changes you made in her life. Thank you.
Those changes have changed and will continue to change that little girl's life. Just want to say thank you for caring. You know, when you join the 700 Club, you are caring about children like SHAMEBER and thousands of others every day all around the world. 65 cents a day, $20 a month makes you a 700 Club member. Maybe you already are. Would you look at these club levels and consider whether God would call you to increase your giving? The 700 Club Gold level is $40 a month. Or maybe you want to join us at the 1,000 Club level. That's $84 a month. Our 2,500 Club members join us at $209 a month, and then our Founders level, $5,000 a year, is $417 a month. Ask God what He'd have you to do, and then call now, because there are so many people around the world who just don't have the means to fix what is correctable, but it's life-changing. Thank you, 700 Club members, for what you do. Want you to know when you call today and you join any level of the 700 Club, we're going to send you Pray with Power, this prayer journal. You're going to love it. 40 days, and it comes with 2 teachings, and it will change the level of your prayer life. We want you to have it. It's our gift to you when you say yes. And just want to thank you for your generosity and your kind heart. Gordon?
Well, when you join the 700 Club, you help people right here in the USA. People like WINIFRED Spencer. Years ago, she looked forward to getting Social Security. Well, today, she's struggling to survive.
78-year-old WINIFRED said surviving on Social Security is a real challenge.
I used to think I'll be glad when I get old so I can get Social Security, but it ain't like you think it is. When you pay your bills, it's like down to a penny, almost, to pay your bills with the money you get from Social Security.
WINIFRED does what she can to stretch her fixed income, but finds it hard to make ends meet.
But stuff is so expensive now. The cost of living is higher now than it was then. I remember like a dozen of eggs was about 50 cents, you know? But now, everything is expensive, everything.
That's when she turned to the food ministry at New Life Church in Virginia, a partner of Operation Blessing.
They give you everything. They give you stuff to drink. They give you hygiene stuff. You got food to eat. They ask you, do you want prayer? And I said yes, because prayer is good for everybody. You know, prayer changes things, that's what they say.
Thanks to you, people like WINIFRED are receiving the help they need.
And by doing what they do, It's showing that they care about the community and the people in it. They're out giving, trying to give you a helping hand where you needed it. And with the food and stuff they give you, it's like a blessing, because it helped lighten the load on you. Like I say, Operation Blessing, and it is a blessing.
Well, I'm sad to say Winifred's story is not an unusual story. For many Americans, there's a whole lot more month than there is money, and for those on fixed incomes, whether that's Social Security or some pension, it is tough, and inflation has absolutely eroded their buying power. We've seen record amounts of inflation, and what do we as Christians do? Well, the number one thing we need to do is take care of our neighbor. And one of the ways you can do that is to show how much you love them by making sure they have enough food. Right here in America, Operation Blessing is shipping millions of pounds of food to our distribution partners every single week. The millions of pounds is over the years, but over a single year. But every week, our trucks are on the road, bringing help and hope to people who are hurting and in need. And we want to supply these food banks with what they need to supply those in need, so that we can all say, yes, we've done the work of the Lord today. We've reached out with love and compassion to our neighbor. If you want to be a part of it, it's real simple. Call us, 1-800-700-7000. Say, I want to join the 700 Club. A portion of every gift you give goes into the work of Operation Blessing. Now, when you call, make sure you ask for Pledge Express. That's electronic monthly giving. Bank doing all the work, and we can send as our gift to you, Power for Life monthly teachings, which you can get by CD or download, your choice, either way. But do it right now, 1-800-700-7000, or you can go to cbn.com, or you can text to give. Text the letters CBN to 71777. Do it right now. Here's a word from 2 Corinthians. God is able to bless you abundantly, so that in all things and in all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work.